Another thing we gotta do when things are hard is to keep going. To keep going when it's hard, we have to overlook our present difficulties. Most people don't handle difficulties well. Pastors, including me. When difficulties come up, you want to say, I want to quit, I don't want to do this, it's too hard right now. Stories told of a pastor years ago having trouble, and so he took a walk down a country road and he stopped in a field by a farmer's property, and there was a cow there looking over a wall. The pastor just stopped there and he was lost in thoughts. He wasn't really thinking about anything. And one of his members came up, the cow, pastor. The pastor says, okay, I'm looking at the cow. What's that cow doing? No, the cow's looking over a wall. What do you think he's doing? And the guy goes up, well, why do you think the cow is looking over the wall? The pastor says, I don't know why the cow's looking over the wall. Why is the cow looking over the wall? Well, the guy says the cow is looking over the wall because the cow can't look through the wall. The wall blocks it. You see, if we look at our difficulties, if we just focus on our difficulties, we're not going to do anything. And when the difficulties come, it's going to cause us to want to quit and not take that second chance and that third chances, to give up. You see, to keep going when it's hard and then to get full nets, what we have to do is we have to overlook the present difficulties that we're encountering. But too often those difficulties become a wall that we can't see through. But we can't do that because we were never promised a life without difficulties. We were never promised if you put your faith in Jesus, it's always going to go easily. In fact, Jesus says in John 16:33, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Jesus has overcome the world, therefore we can overcome the difficulties that we experience. Now, we live in a time where difficulties are very often not overcome because we think everything should be easy. We have this kind of pleasure principle that if something's difficult, you quit. You don't do it. You go find something that's easier to do. But we also know that doesn't accomplish anything. We also live in a time when we know the phrase, no pain, no gain. But it's still easy for people when they're in the midst of the difficulties they're experiencing to quit, to give up, to not keep going, to not take a second chance or a third chance or a fourth chance. I think one of the problems is we oftentimes quit right when there's a big catch right next to us. Right if there's success, if we'll just try one more time, if we'll just obey Jesus again and do what he says. I've always been encouraged by this story of a woman who's a marathon swimmer. And a marathon swimmer is one who doesn't just do a sprint type of swim like they do in the Olympics, but they swim for miles and miles and miles. And she was very successful. She had already swum the English Channel between Great Britain and France. Others swam long distances. So now she was going to swim from San Pedro. She had the San Pedro Channel, which separates Catalina Island from the shore of Los Angeles. And she's done these long things before, and so she was trained and she was ready. And when you start out doing a marathon swim like that, you're swimming and there's a boat ahead of you, just in case you have problems and they'll get you. And so she was swimming along, and she's getting a little tired because you do when you swim several miles. And she was getting some jellyfish bites, and they sting. Now, she's gotten those before, but they were stinging and they were bothering her, and just getting a little tired. And then the fog rolled in. And when the fog rolled in, she was kind of getting a little bit disoriented. And she was swimming, and there was the boat ahead of her, and she saw the boat, and she was swimming, and the jellyfish bites were really hurting her, and she was getting tired, and she was swimming. And finally, she reached the place that says, this is just too hard. This is too difficult. I just can't do it this time. And she signaled for the boat to stop, and she would swim on the boat and get on the boat and say, I just didn't get it done today, maybe I'll try again. And then the boat kept going just a little bit further, and the fog got thin enough that she could see the shore, and she quit 600 yards from the shore. And she said, if I'd only known I was that close, I could have kept going. If I only knew the shore was that near, I could have put up with the pain. My muscles would have done it. The bites were hurting, but they weren't that bad. I didn't know how close I was to the shore. You see, the difficulties seemed unbearable and impossible to overcome because she didn't realize how close she was to success. Here's the truth. Difficulties are endurable if you know that victory is inevitable. Difficulties are endurable if you know you're going to be successful. It's just those times when difficulties make us think that we won't be successful. They can be ignored, and people can take second chances and third chances. People can put up with hardship and difficulties if they know they're going to win. In 1 John 5:4, we find this. For everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. So in faith, when Jesus tells us, not just when Jeff dreams it up, but when Jesus says, let your nets down once again, I can leave those past failures behind, I can overlook present difficulties, and I can keep on going in obedience to him. Now, I probably shouldn't tell you the story. It's about a story I had when I was a youngster growing up and got in a fight, all right? I didn't grow up in church, but I wasn't a kid who got in fights a lot, but I did grow up in church. I became a Christian as a teenager. And there was a bully in our neighborhood. His name was Tom. And, Tom kind of left me alone, didn't bother me a whole lot, but, probably because my older brother was kind of the toughest guy in the neighborhood. But anyway, one time, something strange happened. I got a knock on the door, and I was said, yay, we're going to play some football. Jeff over at the grade school, you come play with us. Now, playing football, you pick up game in the neighborhood was not uncommon at all, but usually it just kind of happened naturally. Nobody came to your house and knocked. But this time, there was a knock on my door and says, come and play, Jeff. And so, sure, we're going to play. I didn't realize that Tom had decided he was going to have a fight with me and put me on my place that day. Well, we started playing football a little bit, and then Tom decided he wanted to pick a fight with me. And so we started fighting. Now, the truth of the matter is that Tom is a better boxer than me, but I was a better wrestler than him. And if you're doing a fight in the neighborhood, you don't have to box, you can wrestle, right? You can grab somebody. And I was winning. He was underneath me, and I was on top. And for some reason, even though I was winning, I kind of said, all right, Tom, I think we should get back to playing football. And he says, okay. And so we quit. And as we quit, went back to playing football. One of the kids in the neighborhood came up to me and says, Jeff, why did you let him up and you had him on the ground? You should have really let him have it. And then maybe he wouldn't be such a bully. Well, I don't know if I really should let him have it or not. But I do know that I had a chance to teach Tom a lesson that day. And he didn't bother me anymore. Maybe a lesson that would have taught him something and helped the other kids in the neighborhood. But it was kind of difficult. It was kind of hard. I quit. You see, Peter, he could have seen the difficulties he was having. He was tired. He had been up all night. He had been fishing. Those nets, when they get soaked with water, they're heavy pulling them up out of the water and back on the boat. He had done it dozens and dozens of times, and his muscles were aching. The sun was now up. They fish at night because you don't have to fish in the hot sun. The sun is up, and it's beating down on them. It was daylight. He could have said it's too difficult and rowed back to shore. Peter didn't know. He overcame the difficulties, the problems. He kept going, and he let the nets down one more time because Jesus told him to, and he brought them up full. He could have been one of thousands of people who quit when success was just 600 yards away. But he wasn't. He wasn't. And once again, he came up with full nets because of